Okay, guys, so I'm going to just quickly explain to you how to write tentative evaluations that go towards the end of passages of analysis that are offering a gentle judgment of the writer's intentions, why they're writing about something in a particular way. And we're going to focus here on this question, how Dickens critiques the ideas of Thomas Malthus in the opening of Stave 3. So we're going to look at this quote from the text that we've just read. The poulterers' shops were still half open, and the fruiterers were radiant in their glory. There were great round pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts, shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen, lolling at the doors and tumbling out into the street in their apoplectic opulence. So we've got this description here of baskets of chestnuts that I think are in part of Dickens's response to this question about Malthus. These descriptions of food that make it seem like there's so much to go around that it's almost desperate to be eaten. So we're going to look at this passage of analysis here. And the part that I want to work on today is the section in bold, but I want you to see it in the context of the whole task that it tends to be attached to. So in his setting, Dickens emphasises the plenty and prodigious nature of the produce consumed on Christmas to show that there was enough food to go around. So this topic sentence is mentioning the writer, explaining clearly that it's the setting that's being used, so it's the who and the what, and then the why is to show us that there is a lot of food, basically. Then we have the introduction of the evidence, portraying the food on the street, using a participle phrasing here. The narrator describes pot-bellied baskets of chestnuts, shaped like the waistcoats of jolly old gentlemen. So we've got that quote embedded in a sentence, and then that combination of a person and a verb at the beginning of it. Then we have the analysis of that evidence. The fact that these baskets are pot-bellied suggests, so it's a zoom in on a phrase, that they themselves are fat, implying that so much food is available that the food itself becomes large and overweight. So there's so much of this that the food almost is becoming fat. In addition, the transition phrase that moves us on to the next point. The fact that they are shaped like the waistcoats of jolly gentlemen reminds us, so it's a zoom in on this phrase, of the friendly people that they will feed, suggesting that all of humankind is looking out for one another. So the food almost looks like the people that it's going to feed, who themselves are friendly. And we have this suggestion that everything is kind of interrelated, trying to make things better for one another, which is really the complete opposite of Malthus's ideas about the effect of food on the population. So we have a concluding sentence, a first one, that deals with the tensions in the text. A two-sided sentence. Begins with a subordinating conjunction. Even though Scrooge himself is thin and restrained with his diet, everybody and everything else in this scene appears to be enjoying the plentiful food supply. So even though Scrooge seems to be the embodiment of this kind of stinginess, even with the way that he eats, everything, including the food itself, is the opposite. And then we have this last sentence, and this is all important. Tentative language in this final sentence. It's as if, not it is, it may be, it could be, it seems that. Those sorts of phrases create this effect of offering a possibility, not a single judgment. It's as if Dickens wants to suggest to the reader that Malthus's ideas were far too negative. They were far too pessimistic about what would happen if the population grew and the food supply grew. And that more food would be available than he believed. Now, it's this part here that I want you to focus your attention on today. These two sentences are what I'm asking you to have a look at. So what we've got here then is another passage from the text of apples. Norfolk biffins are a type of apple. Squat and swarthy. Swarthy is like dark-skinned and brown. Setting off the yellow of the oranges and lemons. And in the great compactness of their juicy persons. It describes them almost as if they're little squat, short, fat, juicy people. They're urgently entreating and beseeching. These are different types of pleas, of begging to be carried home in paper bags and eaten after dinner. So the food is kind of begging for itself to be eaten. We've got the beginning. In his setting, Dickens emphasises, the prodigious nature of the food supply by making it sound like the food is begging to be eaten. Introduction of the evidence. Portraying the apples in the grocers, the narrator describes them urgently entreating and beseeching to be carried home. The embedded quote. Then we move on to the analysis from here. The personification of the apples suggests it's a technique zoom in. We're looking at the technique of personifying the apples, begging to be carried home. Suggests that they want to be eaten, which implies that there is so much food that it is begging for its own consumption. And here's where I want you to begin. Even though something, contrast idea, and then second sentence, it's as if Dickens. So those are the two that I want you to add to the end of this passage. In this final example, we've got the description of all of these different wonderful exotic products from the text. And this is what I want you to focus on and analyse. But here, all you've got is the topic sentence. So the first thing you need to do is pick a quotation from this that you're going to analyse and then introduce it. Describing the something, the narrator explains how and then introduce the quote. Then you're going to pick a zoom in, a word, phrase or technique. Then after that, you're going to write CS1 and 2. The even though, ultimately this, and then the final sentence, the tentative judgment, the possibility. It may be that. It could be that. Okay.